Assalamu alaikum everyone. We were discussing about the different types of breads in the previous lecture. So today we will start with the bagels. This is also the type of bread. These are round rolls about 10 centimeter in diameter. They have a hole in the middle, and its diameter is about 10 centimeter. They look like donuts. They look like donuts in appearance. Apparently, they look like donuts, but they are different from donuts in taste and texture. We say that bagels, we can call bagels as cement donuts or donuts with rigor mortis. Why? Because their texture and taste is different from donuts. Bagels have different properties from donuts, but we call them donuts because apparently they look like donuts. They resemble to the donuts in the appearance, but they are different from them. So the next type is white breads. These are the most popular bread varieties because it's made with the basic yeast dough of wheat flour. There are different types of flours. Like when we say about the types of breads, then there are different types of breads. But like the types of breads, there are different types of flours. So we use all-purpose flour for the preparation of for the production of white breads, and further white breads are categorized into different types, and they vary from each other on the base of the basic recipe. The difference lies in the recipe that makes them different from each other. So whenever we prepare the product commercially, then white bread is usually sliced before packaging, and is most often we can say used as sandwich bread. So white breads have a fine texture and close grain, which makes slicing easy. So another type is rye breads. Actually, it's a wholemeal bread that we make it from rye, or we can make it from the mixture of rye and wheat flour. It was originally developed in the Europe and is made in a wide variety of styles and shapes. We can make rye breads in different styles and shapes. It depends upon us. It depends upon the industry how it produces it. Also depends upon the customer requirements. So rye flour is different from ordinary wheat flour. It contains only small amounts of dough strengthening proteins. So whenever the protein in the product, mostly the whenever the protein in the product is in a smaller amount, then it produces weak dough. So dry flour also, they are made with less amount of water than dough from ordinary flour, so they are stiff and keep their shape. Actually, for the production of rye breads, the protein amount is smaller, so we use less amount of water. So whenever we use less amount of water, rye breads become stiff, and its shape remains the same. So with most grain and meal breads, gluten can be we can add white flour or gluten so that it can improve the dough strengthening properties. Because we have discussed earlier that bread contains a smaller amount of protein. The protein that plays an important role in strengthening the bread dough, but rye bread contains a small amount of protein, so to compensate that deficiency we can add further white flour or gluten. So we make the bread by the traditional way because I missed the point earlier that at the top it's written here that rye flour has more amylase enzyme. So what's the main function of amylase enzyme? It breaks down starch into sugars. It's the basic function of amylase enzyme. So we make the bread from traditional way so that it raise the acidity and it kill the amylase enzyme. So why we do that? The question arises, why we do that? Because it stops the bread being doughy and sticky. It reduces the stickiness of the product. So, if we talk about the traditional way of making breads, sourdough method is the most popular method. Sourdough method is the most popular traditional method for the rye bread making. So, here is the point that need to be discussed is keeping qualities of rye breads. Whenever keep it in mind that whenever the pH of the product is smaller is less, then its chances to spoil are smaller, because whenever the pH is smaller, the chances of microbial growth are less. Whenever, because microbes don't grow too much at the lower pH, whenever the chances of microbial growth are less, then the shelf life of the product automatically increases. The same case is here in case of rye breads. The pH is lower, so that's why the shelf life of the product is increased. But it's the natural process, but we can increase the shelf life of the rye breads with different treatments like pasteurization, sterilization. These treatments are carried on the wrapped product, so the film must be heat stable and have good barrier properties, so that the treatments don't damage the product that is present inside the wrapper. So whenever we're doing these treatments, there are the chances that condensation is formed. The condensation process occurs inside the film. When this process occurs, then the condensation that is formed inside the film may be absorbed by the product, so it can damage the quality of the product. Damage, so but it has no adverse effect on quality of the breads, of the rye breads. When we are doing this process, then there are chances that darkening of the product occurs, but it is less important here. Whenever the darkening of the product occurs, then it's true that the nutritional quality of the product is not compromised, it's not damaged, but it's not desirable from the consumer point of view. But here, fortunately, it's less important because the product is already of dark color. For the sterilization process, we can use different types of ovens. After the treatment, the shelf life of the bread may be extended to 24 months. We know it very well that the shelf life of the rye breads is already greater, is already the shelf life of this period is larger, because its pH is smaller. But we can enhance further by doing different treatments like sterilization and pasteurization. So these are the basic components. If we talk about, we were discussing in the previous lectures. First of all, we discussed the important introduction of breads. Then we also discussed the different types of breads. But we have completed all of the most popular types of breads. Now we will discuss about the basic parts of the kernel. It contains three basic parts: endosperm, bran, and germ. The brown portion that is appearing here is the bran. The yellowish portion that is depicted here is germ, and the grayish portion is endosperm. Endosperm is a major portion. From the percentage point of view, it's 83%, and the bran then germ. So these basic parts during the milling process, it's also the processing step. We separate all of these three basic parts. We separate them, and then we recombine them according to our requirement. Then the industry recombine them according to its requirement. So it depends upon what type of flour we want. What is the requirement of industry? What is the requirement of consumer? So accordingly, we could recombine all of these basic parts and we make the flour. So in the next lecture, we will discuss the different classes of wheat, different bread ingredients, This is the basic topic, I guess, basic point that I missed here. The white flour that we obtain is obtained from endosperm. The part of the kernel that makes white flour is endosperm. So we will see you in the next lecture. Till then, Allah Hafiz.